the stars tonight, holding on to love bathed in moonlight.
It was a cold winter evening, and the first snowflakes of the season drifted softly outside my bedroom window. I sat on my bed, staring at the engagement ring on my finger, a symbol of the future I was supposed to be excited about. Instead, I felt suffocated, as if the diamond itself was a shackle. There was a knock at the door. "Come in," I said, though my voice was barely above a whisper. The door creaked open, and there he stood, Elliot, my younger brother by 2 years. The warm glow of the hallway light silhouetted his frame, making him seem like a figure from another world. His dark eyes, always so perceptive, searched mine as he stepped into the room. "Hey," he said softly, closing the door behind him. "Hey," I replied, not meeting his gaze. He sat on the edge of my bed, the mattress sinking slightly under his weight. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was thick, heavy with everything that had happened over the past year. It began innocently enough, as these things often do. Elliot and I had always been close. Growing up in a chaotic household, we were each other's safe haven. When our parents fought, we would retreat to our treehouse in the backyard, sharing whispered secrets and dreams of escape. But last year, when I moved back home after college to plan my wedding to James, things shifted. Elliot had changed during my absence. He was no longer the awkward teenager I'd left behind, but a confident young man with a quiet intensity that drew people in, including me. The first time it happened, it was a mistake, or so we told ourselves. It was late, and we were watching an old movie in the living room. James was out of town, and our parents were asleep. A scene in the movie made us laugh, and before I knew it, I was leaning against him, my head on his shoulder. He didn't move away. When I looked up, his face was inches from mine. I could feel his breath, warm against my cheek. "Elliot, we shouldn't." But before I could finish the thought, his lips were on mine. That kiss unleashed something neither of us could control. For months, we lived in a world that only existed when we were alone, a world where boundaries blurred, and the only thing that mattered was the way we made each other feel. We told ourselves it wasn't real, that it would end once I got married. But the more time we spent together, the harder it became to pretend. "Do you love him?" Elliot asked now, breaking the silence. I looked up at him, startled. "What?" "James," he said, his voice steady. "Do you love him?" I hesitated. I wanted to say yes, to give him the answer he deserved to hear, but the words wouldn't come. Elliot sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "You can't marry him, Claire." "You don't understand," I said, my voice trembling. "I have to. Everyone expects it. Mom, Dad, James, even me. I can't just throw all of that away." "What about us?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Doesn't that matter?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "Of course it matters, but what we have, it's wrong. People would never understand." "I don't care what people think," he said fiercely. "I care about you, about us." The days leading up to my wedding were a blur of fittings, rehearsals, and forced smiles. Elliot avoided me, and I avoided him, both of us knowing that the closer the wedding came, the closer we were to an end we didn't want to face. The night before the ceremony, I found myself in the treehouse. It was the one place that still felt like ours, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. I didn't expect him to be there. "You're running away," he said as I climbed through the hatch. "I needed to think," I replied. "You've already made up your mind, haven't you?" I didn't answer. Elliot crossed the small space between us and cupped my face in his hands. "Don't do this, Claire. Don't marry someone you don't love just because it's easier." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "And what about us? What kind of life could we have? It's impossible, Elliot." "It's only impossible if you believe it is," he said, his voice breaking. For a moment, I let myself imagine it a life where we didn't have to hide, where we could be together without fear or shame. But reality crashed down on me like a tidal wave. "I'm sorry." I whispered. The next day, I walked down the aisle, my heart heavy with the weight of what I was leaving behind. As I said my vows, I couldn't bring myself to look at Elliot, sitting silently in the second row. When the ceremony ended, I caught one last glimpse of him before he slipped out of the church, disappearing into the winter night. I never saw him again. Years later, I still think about him, about the love we shared and the choices we made. Some nights, when the world is quiet and my husband is asleep beside me, I wonder what might have been if I had been braver. But the truth is, some secrets are too heavy to bear, and some loves are meant to stay hidden, locked away in the corners of our hearts.
Forever you and me, under the stars tonight, holding on to love, bathed in moonlight.
Thank you so much for staying with us until the end. We truly appreciate your support. If you found this content enjoyable and informative, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us create more great content for you. Until next time, take care and see you in the next video. Goodbye.